Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a study that I'm doing of the works of Andrei Tarkovsky. If you've been watching some of the previous videos, I've been going through his filmography in a specific order based on on a British Film Institute article from a few years ago. And my entry point into Tarkovsky was with the movie Stalker. I've watched Solaris, and I've also watched The Mirror. Before I start, I want to thank my good friend Daisuke Beppu for mentioning my channel again on his channel. I really appreciate it. And Daisuke, to me, is an expert on the Criterion Collection and many, many films. If you haven't seen his live streams, if you haven't seen his Film Club live streams, I highly recommend that you watch his channel. His channel is just amazing, and he has all of the Criterion Collection films. His discussion and analysis of Criterion Collection films and all films is excellent. So if you haven't watched his channel, I'm going to link his channel below, and I want to say thanks again. I want to express my gratitude to him and his subscribers. Also, I've noticed that I have a few more subscribers now, and I'm assuming that some of the new subscribers, and welcome by the way, may be coming from his channel to here. So welcome new subscribers. So the last movie I watched of Andrei Tarkovsky's is his epic film Andrei Rublev from 1966. If you haven't seen this movie, please, I don't want you to be spoiled, so you can turn off the video and come back to this later. I'm going to be talking about some plot points, some of the characters, and some of the techniques that Tarkovsky uses. And this is by no means I'm not an expert in Tarkovsky, and this is really my first reaction to the movie. This is my first exposure to Tarkovsky's work, and I'm recording these videos as quickly as I can after viewing the movie, so that I can actually remember my own reactions to it after the first time I've seen the movie. But if you haven't seen the movie, feel free to turn off the video and come back later. I'm going to be going through all of his films and posting these videos on my first reaction to them. So Andrei Rublev is a movie from 1966, and it tracks it's loosely based on the icon painter of the same name and his life, but it's very loosely based on that. The movie basically tracks Andrei Rublev's journey in life as an icon painter and the many trials and tribulations that he goes through. And that's the basic plot of the story. It's a story to me about faith, endurance, courage, many other things. Tarkovsky at the beginning, and there's a prologue element. I should say too that I've been watching these movies on the Criterion channel. I do not have the physical media right now, but I plan to get it at some point. And but I am watching these movies on the Criterion channel, including some of the supplements. I did watch an analysis of the film, a little bit of an analysis of it. This is not going to be an in-depth video about the movie. I feel like I could potentially talk about this movie for quite some time, but it's more intended to be a first reaction to the film. In general, I feel like it's an amazing film. It's an epic. These movies, to me, these Tarkovsky films are very dense with meaning, and so it takes a while to process the film itself. Generally, I like to watch films in one sitting if I can, but sometimes life gets in the way and I'm not able to do that. With this film, I watched the beginning. I watched the first hour yesterday, and then early morning today, I finished the film. I did want to mention a couple of things that I noticed about the movie. One of the things that I learned from the supplemental materials is that the prologue of the film basically showcases how Tarkovsky works. It gives an example of some of his techniques, including crane shots and tracking shots, landscapes. If you've seen the film, you know that there's an aerial shot in the beginning of the film that's very spectacular. So that is more or less a calling card for his work, this prologue. And so I found that really interesting and fascinating, having seen a few of his films already, to see all of those elements combined together in the beginning of the film. In the beginning of the film, also, you see the main protagonist, Andrei Rublev, with his two companions. which he only sees for the beginning of the film, and then they separate. You assume that potentially they're going to get back together, but they never actually do. There are some interactions throughout the film, but the three characters in the beginning never quite make it back together, which is part of the journey. In the middle of the film, about an hour in, there is a major battle sequence. Although I found the battle sequence very well done, it was very disturbing to me, as it probably would be to the character, the main protagonist himself, which is as Andrei Rublev is going through this journey, being an icon painter and working with a mentor. This battle sequence really interrupts his life, it seems, and it is very disturbing. It's very violent. So if that's something that you don't like to see in film, I wouldn't recommend watching this. But in the context of the film, it completely made sense, and I felt uncomfortable during those sequences, which, as a viewer, I would imagine that Tarkovsky wants you to feel uncomfortable, especially if you are relating to the main protagonist of the film. But basically, that battle sequence moves Andrei Rublev to take a vow of silence and to continue in the rest of the film in a monastery. And so that's, again, pretty much the way the film begins to wind up. There is a sequence also at the end. I should say, too, that this film is divided into chapters. So if you did not want to watch the whole thing at once, you can stop at each of the chapters and maybe watch a little bit of it at a time. But it is good to watch a film as much as you can all the way through, if possible. But if you can't, there are chapters there to be able to pause the watching and go back. But there's a segment at the end of the film called The Bell. And The Bell, basically, as a segment of the film, is, in a small part, a representation of the entire film, if that makes any sense. It basically has a similar protagonist in that particular section of the film that is similar to Andrei Rublev and his journey. And so it's very interesting to see that at the end. You don't see much of Andrei Rublev at the end of the film, other than in a few segments, because you're watching this other story unfold. But it's very interesting that at the end of that particular sequence, Andrei Rublev gains back his inspiration as a painter. He's taken a vow of silence, and now he's back to being inspired and moving on with his work. One of my favorite quotes from the movie is, "Everything is an eternal circle and it repeats and repeats itself." I think that's an amazing quote to represent this journey that Andrei Rublev is on through the movie. And again, I felt like although there is very intense drama in this film, I feel like overall the film is extremely inspiring in terms of being on a journey, having faith on a journey. The fact that it's not about the destination. This is a common expression. It's not really about the destination. It's about the journey. And I really feel like that with this film, that throughout our lives we need to have courage and integrity and just overall endurance of the many things we might go through in life. And to me, this is a story about that, as well as the path of an artist and some of the things an artist specifically might have to endure through their life, because there's a certain amount of passion that goes along with being an artist. But I suppose that could be, you could relate that to really any profession that you have a tremendous amount of passion on. But specifically with artists, I feel like artists have a unique passion, whether it's as a painter, a musician, a writer, things like that, that will drive them to do certain things or to proceed in a certain way in life. So I found a tremendous amount of hope in this movie, and I feel like in these challenging times, especially today, we need hope. It's very important to continue to endure and to proceed, move forward in life, which you see in this film also. There are some religious elements in this film from some of the supplements. Tarkovsky was, I think, about 30 years old at this point in his life. He wasn't particularly religious, at least according to the supplements, but there are religious elements in the film. But I think it's important to mention that also. So this was just a short discussion of my first reaction to the Tarkovsky movie, Andrei Rublev. Again, I feel like I can study this film for my entire life. The film is I've talked about this in other videos where some films don't stay with you that long. This film, I feel like, can be with me for a lifetime, and I feel like I'm going to be watching it over and over again to find new meaning in it. So it's very challenging to encapsulate the film in about 10 or 15 minutes here, but I wanted to post my first reaction to it. I highly recommend this film. If you haven't had a chance to watch Daisuke's analysis of the film, at least in the short video that he posted recently, please do that. It's very interesting what he has to say about the film as well. And I really have high regard, high respect for his opinion on it also. As I mentioned earlier, these films are very intense, and there's a lot to them. So it's not easy to talk about them for a short period of time. Also, films are very personal. So you as a viewer, I feel you as a viewer bring yourself to the film and bring your experiences. And so the first reaction sometimes is critical to your enjoyment of the work and your understanding of the film itself. This is my very simple reaction to the movie after watching it for the first time. I'm sure on repeated viewings that I'll find other things to learn about the film and other things to explore about Tarkovsky as a director. I do feel that at certain points in life, you are drawn to filmmakers, books, music, certain works of art. And I felt like at this point in my life, I've been particularly drawn to Tarkovsky's work. I feel like Tarkovsky, at this particular moment in our history, is relevant. It's very relevant, and I feel like I can relate to what's happening in the world and how Tarkovsky presents his material as well, if that makes sense. The next film I'm going to be watching is Ivan's Childhood, and let me know in the comments below if you think there's another film in the filmography that I should continue with, but that's the next one that I thought was most appropriate. And then I'm going to continue watching all of the Tarkovsky films, and I'll probably post a summary video at some point after I've finished all the films. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of this channel. I really appreciate it. I love all the comments and the questions, so if you want to leave a comment below and let me know what you think, if you're a fan of Tarkovsky's work, if you have a recommendation or a comment or a question, please let me know. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell so you'll know when I upload a new video. And I'll see you soon.